Okay, so for today's story time, we have a book that we read earlier this week. It's about a friend who finds a penguin and they quickly become friends. But the boy, remember, he's trying to return the penguin to where he thinks he needs to go and ends up realizing they belong together. Yeah, friends. So this is called Lost and Found. Say the title with me. Now, as I told you earlier, it's written and illustrated by one of my favorite author illustrators. His name is Oliver Jeffers. He's the author, which means he wrote the words. He's also the illustrator, which means he drew the pictures. Here's the cover. Here's the back. And what's this part called? The spine. Lost and Found, written and illustrated by Oliver Jeffers. Once there was a boy who found a penguin at his door. That's odd. He said, "Hello, penguin." Come on in. The boy did not know where the penguin had come from, but it began to follow him everywhere. The penguin looked sad, and the boy thought it must be lost. I think so. Might just want a friend to play with. Okay, my turn. My turn. So the boy decided to help the penguin find its way home. He checked in at the Lost and Found office, but no one was missing a penguin. He asked some birds if they knew where the penguin had come from, but they ignored him. Some birds are like that. He's talking to the seagulls in the trees. They didn't talk to him back. The boy asked his duck in the bathtub, but the duck just floated away. He didn't know either. That night, the boy couldn't sleep for disappointment. He wanted to help the penguin, but he wasn't sure how to help. I think you guys know this. He just needs to be a good friend. Yeah. The next morning, he discovered from reading in the book, no more, where penguins come from. They come from the South Pole. How could the boy and the penguin get to the South Pole? He ran down to the harbor and asked a big ship to take them to the South Pole. He was hollering like this, "Hey, can you take us to the South Pole?" But his voice was much too small to be heard over the ship's horn. The ship's horn sounded like this. Listen. And stop. They couldn't hear the boy's voice over the horn. Too loud. Together, the boy decided he and the penguin would rowboat to the South Pole. So the boy took his rowboat out and tested it for size and strength. He told stories to the penguin to help pass the time. They packed everything they would need, like the umbrella and a big Band-Aid in case they got hurt, and pushed the rowboat out to sea. They're about to go on an adventure. They rowed south for many days and many nights. There was lots of time for stories, and the penguin listened to every one. So the boy would always tell another. He just kept telling stories over and over again, more stories, because the penguin loved listening to the boy's stories. They floated through good weather and bad weather when the waves were as big as mountains. Until my turn, until finally they came to the South Pole. The boy was delighted, but the penguin said nothing. Suddenly it looked sad again as the boy helped it out of the boat, past a sign that said, "Welcome to the South Pole." Then the boy said goodbye and floated away. And when he looked back, the penguin was still there. But the penguin looked sadder than ever. He had a sad face on, droopy eyes. He wasn't smiling. He was sad. Maybe even had some tears. It felt strange for the boy to be on his own. There was no point in telling stories now because there was no one to listen except the wind and the waves. Instead, the boy just thought in his head. And the more he thought, the more he realized he had made a big mistake. The penguin hadn't been lost. He had only been lonely, which must have meant that he wanted a friend. Yeah. What's the boy gonna do? Quickly, he turned around the boat and rowed back to the South Pole as fast as he could. Do you see the penguin and the umbrella rowing around one side of the iceberg while the boy rows his boat around the other side? They just missed each other. At last he reached the pole again, but there was no penguin. The boy searched and searched, but the penguin was nowhere to be found. Sadly, the boy got back into his boat, and set off for home. But then the boy saw something in the water ahead of him. And the closer he got, until he could see. You're right. It was the penguin. Floating in the umbrella on the water. They gave each other a big hug, a big penguin hug. Last page. So the boy and his friend went home together, talking of wonderful things all along the way, while whales and fish swam underneath them. And that is Lost and Found, as read to you by Mr. Bean and his group of awesome